You're listening to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM. During the next hour, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Welcome to Catholic Chicago, WNDZ 750 AM on your dial. This is Mark Teresi, Executive Director of Holy Name Cathedral. Father Greg Sakowicz, our host, will not be with us this morning. He is in preparation. Say a little prayer for him for his hip surgery on January 7th, this Thursday. So he's over at the hospital with tests, getting prepared. So he asked for your prayers. Please keep him in your prayers. One funny Christmas story, and then we'll jump into our show. I have to share this as a grandpa. So we have twin little granddaughters, Nora and Maddie, 3 years old. And they did a little project with their mom creating a manger scene. And Nora added a twin to Jesus. She put a twin in the manger. And her mom said, Nora, Jesus didn't he had a twin. And, well, what's his name? Well, his twin's name is Mac and Cheesy and Jesus. Mac and Cheesy and Jesus. So out of the mouths of babes, there's a little bit of her reality, a twin as a twin. Grandpa loved that story. Anyway, this morning, we're very happy to have special guest Dan Olsen, the Director of Ecumenical Interreligious Affairs for the Archdiocese of Chicago, and Reverend Courtney Reid of the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago, and we're going to speak with our guest this morning about the movement for Christian unity, or ecumenism, and the upcoming week of prayer for Christian unity from January 18th to the 25th. Dan, Reverend Courtney, welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Oh, Mark, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting us on.
Oh, yeah. Good morning.
Yes. Thank you. It is wonderful to be here, and I am the parent of twin teenagers. So I loved your story.
Oh, thank you. You'll probably have to talk to our daughter-in-law on how to deal with twin teenagers somewhere down the road.
Happy to do that.
And they have 4 daughters, so they have one daughter on either side of the twins. So it's quite a home.
Well, I have an older daughter, so we have 3 teenagers.
Oh, God bless
I'm happy to talk down the road. That's a different conversation.
Exactly. But what I'd like to do before we get into the week of prayer, maybe Dan and Reverend Courtney, just give us a little bit of your story. How did you come to be in this spot in your church, in our churches? Dan, and then maybe Reverend Courtney?
Sure, okay. I can start. For me, it was something after college. I worked in a parish. And when I was working as a pastoral associate in that parish, I was invited to be a part of the local ecumenical council. As part of that work, I came to know Christians of various traditions in the town I was working. And beyond that, I began to meet couples in the parish, one who is Catholic and one who might be Episcopalian, one is Baptist, one is Lutheran. So as I began to meet these couples and work in that local ecumenical council, I really developed a passion, a hunger for Christian unity. I took that with me to my graduate studies at Loyola, where I did a PhD in theology, and I really studied more the theological aspects of these families, interchurch families as they've come to be known. And that really led me to the ecumenical office and some of my work there. There's more detail to that story, but that's essentially what brought me there, is my meeting local people in that parish I first worked at.
So your ministry is rooted in ecumenism.
Yes, very much so. It's where my passion lies. It's what drives a lot of my work for the Archdiocese.
Wonderful. Reverend Courtney?
Thank you. So I grew up Roman Catholic right after, I was 6 years old as Vatican II was rolling out in my diocese of Richmond, Virginia. in the late 60s. And throughout my childhood, there was a real sense of ecumenical cooperation. There was an Episcopal church right next door to my Catholic church that we were partnered with in many ways. And when I went to college, I was very involved in our Catholic Student Association, which was in a covenant relationship with the Canterbury, the Episcopal campus ministry. We shared prayer together, we shared ministry together, we shared outreach, and it was during a real spirit of great hope around unity between the Anglican Communion and Roman Catholics. It was in the early 1980s. And also I grew up in a interchurch household. My father was Presbyterian, my mother was Roman Catholic, and their best friends were a Baptist and Catholic couple. So this is something I've always been drawn to. And I became Episcopalian in my late 20s in a desire to more further live out the vocation to which I believe God was calling me to. And although recently ordained, it took me a while to get there. Remaining involved in ecumenical activities, my great hope for the future of the church and our need to be in continual dialogue and prayer and finding those ways that we can work together has really driven my ministry. And much of what happens in one of the places that I oversee in our diocese, our Nicholas Center Retreat Center, has been the coming together of Episcopal groups and other denominations throughout the Christian community, Catholics, Presbyterians, Methodists, for example, who have come together for these conversations. So I remain really hopeful and really excited about these opportunities for Christian dialogue.
That's wonderful. Reverend Courtney, do you have an assignment here in Chicago? It says Episcopal Diocese, but it doesn't say, are you a pastor?
I am. I work on the bishop's staff. So like Dan, I serve on the diocesan staff. I am the director of operations and our Nicholas Center. So oversee a function in many ways like a chief administrative officer. And I serve as a priest associate at All Saints Episcopal Church in the Ravenswood neighborhood in Chicago.
Is that on Wilson?
It is.
Oh, because we were at a wedding service there a while ago. What a wonderfully hospitable place. We felt very welcome. Now, as we look at the week of prayer for Christian unity, Dan, what should Christians know about this week, and maybe how can either people prepare or participate in the week?
Yeah, I should mention the week itself began as a day of prayer for Christian unity in the early 20th century. 1907 is what most folks originally date it to. It eventually became an octave, in the Christian tradition. A very important celebration is something that would last for 8 days, such as Christmas or Easter. So it became deemed important enough to give it an entire 8-day length of time, by which we would offer prayers for unity, maybe do some particular acts that week together to exhibit our unity for one another. But it's a time to set aside 8 days in the midst of our busy year to pray specifically for Christian unity, something that Christ willed for his followers to be united as one, and something that we hold with us today, for the sake of the gospel, that its spread could be more easily done, it could be more recognized by others in our evangelical efforts. So these 8 days are a particular time in the year to offer prayer to God, join together with one another for that sake of unity. Now this year, as you well know, is unlike any other, although I say that knowing that we just entered a new year of 2021. But during this time of COVID, we can't gather in the ways we had often done. Normally there would be various prayer services throughout the Chicagoland area, organized by local ecumenical councils or groups or sister and brother parishes. Right now we're trying to move things online. There are a couple of things that have been set up with the Focolare community, among others. And what the easiest thing to do is we'll be posting those on our website at the Archdiocese.
Do you want to give that website, and then we're going to take a little break, and we'll come back and talk more about what the week will look like. But what's the website that people can connect with?
You can find it at eia.archchicago.org.
Again, please?
eia.archchicago.org.
Great. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be back. WNDZ, 750 a.m. on your dial. Catholic Chicago. We're speaking with Dan Olsen, Director of Ecumenical and Religious Affairs, Reverend Courtney Reid, Episcopal Diocese of Chicago. When we get back, Reverend Courtney, you have a newly elected bishop coming, a Reverend Canon Paula Clark. We'll maybe talk a little bit about her and how you see her involvement in ecumenism in the Chicagoland area. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Catholic Charities Divine Affair home tasting parties are going virtual. This year marks the 20th anniversary of Divine Affair, the elegant wine tasting event that benefits our self-sufficiency programs. Low-income single parents with dependent children are trying to break the cycle of welfare and poverty. Today, the need is greater than ever as the COVID-19 pandemic has left thousands of newly struggling families in need of immediate assistance. You can easily coordinate a virtual wine tasting and help Catholic Charities at the same time. Each guest will enjoy a sample wine kit that includes wine and a guide, all courtesy of Louis Glenn's Wines. You can gather your friends and family for this fun event or incorporate a celebration for a birthday, anniversary, or engagement at the same time. To learn more about a virtual home tasting party and how you and your guests can win fabulous raffle prizes, call today at 773-756-6937. That's 773-756-6937. Cheers!
We're back, WNDZ, 750 AM on your dial, Catholic Chicago. Our phone number is 312-255-8408, 312-255-8408. We're speaking with Dan Olsen, Director of Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs for the Archdiocese of Chicago, and Reverend Courtney Reid, Episcopal Diocese of Chicago. Reverend Courtney, you are going to have a new bishop, a bishop-elect, Reverend Canon Paula Clark. Tell us about your new bishop, and what are you looking forward to as she begins her ministry here in April?
Absolutely. We are thrilled that on December 12th, in a virtual electing convention, given these times, we elected Paula Clark as the 13th Bishop of Chicago. She's coming to us from Washington, D.C., with a rich history, both in church work as a priest, a rector, in diocesan work, but also someone who's been deeply engaged in the life of a community in a city through serving in local government in the city of Washington, D.C., where she worked in human resources. She is the first Black person, first woman elected to Bishop Diocesan in Chicago, and so for us, this was a landmark and truly exciting event.
And how,
I know from go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, and how do you know her take on ecumenism and how that will be part of her leadership style here?
I don't specifically know her take on ecumenism, but I do know she is deeply committed to building relationships, not only throughout our diocese, but with other partners as well. We had a conversation when she was in town checking out Chicago before she moves sometime in the next month about just the people she's eager to get to know and to talk to. And that certainly includes the ecumenical and interfaith community, not only in Chicago, but throughout our diocese, which encompasses 22 counties in northern and central Illinois.
So I'm sure she'll come and have a conversation with Cardinal Sakowicz, too, about
Absolutely.
ecumenism. And Cardinal Bernardine and Bishop Montgomery in the mid-'80s, they had a commitment, a covenant, encouraging Catholics and Episcopalians in Chicago to live together in faith, love, hope. Dan and Reverend Courtney, either one of you at this point, how does that fit into a foundation for what you're doing right now today in terms of promoting our upcoming Prayer for Christian Unity?
Well, I might just say that Cardinal Bernardine and Bishop Montgomery didn't really have it. They signed on behalf of the two dioceses. So really it's ours. It's all of ours.
That's a good clarification. Very good.
It's something that we share, and I frankly don't think most Catholics and Episcopalians of our two dioceses even know about it. So one of the jobs, I think, for our office in partnership with the Episcopal Diocese is to make this better known in the coming days. And maybe with Bishop-elect Paul Clark coming, we can do more. This could be an opportunity to resuscitate some of those important initiatives that we said we would do together, whether it's social outreach or witnessing the gospel together, praying together, supporting our different ministries together, that maybe this is an opportunity to look back at that agreement, that covenant that we signed, our Cardinal Bernardine and Bishop Montgomery signed on our behalf, that remains valid and important for our future together.
And this show is called Catholic Chicago, but the Chicago Catholic, our newspaper for the Archdiocese, should have that on the front cover the week of this the week of this Prayer for Unity, because it will remind folks that we are bound together in faith. Reverend Courtney, what about you?
I so agree. This was such an important document, and it was signed when sort of that time when I was in college, where there was such spirit and hope. And something I said to Dan when we were first talking on the phone a week or so ago was it seems that especially now, when as a nation we focus so much on how we're divided, that as people of faith, it is vitally important to me for the soul of our nation to come together in the places where we share values, where we share faith commitments, to work for justice, to work for peace, to share a message of hope and love. And if the churches can't do it, then who's going to?
And probably we are doing it, and we don't talk about it or look at Catholic.
Maybe that's it.
Look at the work of Catholic Charities. Over 1 million people serviced in this area, and nobody asks what faith you are. We just blend those faiths. The Episcopalian Church is well known in the Chicago area for social justice, peace-building work. Maybe what are some of the initiatives that you can highlight for our audience, Reverend Courtney, that could, or that has or could or would bring us together?
Right. I was thinking about those this morning, and I think some of the really important ones where Bishop Lee, our newly retired bishop, took leadership, and looking forward to where Bishop-elect Clark will lead us, is in several areas where I think we can find common ground. The work around the scourge of gun violence in our city and around our state. And I know that Cardinal Sakowicz and Bishop Lee have been in events together around gun violence. The work of anti-racism, again, places where we know that the gospel is calling us to overcome that which divides us, is so critical. The work around immigration reform, again, something I know that both the Archdiocese and Catholics overall and Episcopalians are really committed to. And so I do believe there's so much place where we can highlight the work that is already happening that we do together.
That's very important, very important. We're going to take a little break. WNDZ 750 AM on your dial, Catholic Chicago. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Dan Olsen and to Reverend Courtney. And I want to talk a little about COVID-19 and how it's impacted ministry. Dan, you alluded to the idea of how we're going to have to pray together during this week of Christian unity, but there are probably other issues that we can discuss and give people a heads up on. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned. WNDZ, Catholic Chicago.
Do you have a gently used laptop or desktop computer that is gathering dust in your home? Consider donating to our Catholic Charities Veterans Computer Project. We will clean out your device, give it new software, and repurpose it for a veteran who is looking for employment. Your gift will make an incredible difference in a veteran's ability to find a job. Catholic Charities provides veteran services throughout Lake and suburban Cook counties, giving participants an array of professional and personal support. Our veterans have served our country, and it is our privilege to serve them. To learn more about Catholic Charities Veterans Services and the Veterans Computer Project, call 847-782-4219. That's 847-782-4219.
On Friday, January 22nd at 12 o'clock p.m., the Archdiocesan Mass for Life will be live-streamed from Holy Name Cathedral. Celebrated by Bishop Kevin Birmingham, along with priests from across the Archdiocese of Chicago, it will be held on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade and the eve of the final event of the March for Life Chicago tour. Please join us. The Mass will be live-streamed on the Archdiocesan YouTube channel. For more information and to register to attend, please visit respectlifechicago.com/events.
Throughout our nation and our world, people of all faiths have recently been joining fervently in all kinds of prayer. They have found that coming together in prayer is a source of comfort and strength. In this spirit of unity, the Archdiocese of Chicago has introduced a call to prayer, a telephone line dedicated to prayer. If you would like to join with another person in prayer, call 312-741-3388. This line is staffed from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily with parishioners from across the Archdiocese of Chicago. These volunteers are here to listen to you, offer support, and pray with you. A call to prayer includes a 24-hour voicemail and email options as well. Experience this wonderful opportunity to join with people just like you who trust in the power of prayer. That phone number again is 312-741-3388. Let's pray together today.
We're back. WNDZ 750 AM on your dial. Catholic Chicago. Mark Teresi, Executive Director, Holy Name Cathedral. Sitting in for Father Greg Sakowicz, who is the host of Catholic Chicago. He is currently having tests. He's going to be operated on his hip on Thursday, so please keep him in prayer. A little side note, I don't know if anybody saw this, if you're on Facebook. Yesterday, all of a sudden on Facebook, there's a picture of Father Greg standing behind Cardinal Supich at Mass with his Bears mask on. And what he did was, at the end of the prayer that he says after communion, he added another prayer, "May the Bears beat the Packers today." And it went viral. And I drove him to the hospital this morning. He said his sister called, said he had like 50,000 hits on I said it didn't. I said, and if the Bears would have won, boy, he would be clairvoyant for all of us, huh? So anyway, keep him in prayer. He is a rabid Bears fan. He's thrilled that they're going to be in the playoffs. We'll see what happens with that. Anyway, I digress. What I'd like to talk a little bit about before we get to the COVID piece, Dan and Reverend Courtney, maybe Dan first. You know, you have a passion for this ecumenism. I mean, you've lived with it, you've breathed it. I've been in ministry 40-some years. Do people that you're with, your friends, do they get it? Do they get the idea of why you're committed to this?
Some do, some do not. In all honesty, I think when you begin to meet and develop relationships with other Christians, that's when the light flicker goes on and people understand what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They see the true value. They see that Christians are deeply united on many fronts, that our core beliefs are very, very much the same, and that we're living out the gospel. I think it's in those moments that people come to understand why I'm so passionate about this. And it's also a clear message that I feel that Christ has given to us, particularly through John's Gospel at the Last Supper, that this is his will for the church to be one. And when you come to believe and know that in your heart, you can't but work for Christian unity. And it's in those moments of sharing those types of things and introducing someone to a fellow Christian that these things become very apparent.
Yeah, that's good. Reverend Courtney,
Yeah,
what about you?
I love that reference to John's Gospel, that we all may be one. And in many ways, ecumenism is baked into the Episcopal Church. So many of our members come from other Christian traditions or in marriages where Dan talked about being in parish ministry and talking to folks who were Catholic and married to a Methodist or an Episcopalian. There are many couples who might come to the Episcopal Church because of that interchurch relationship and found a place that was felt at home in the Episcopal Church. And we share in full communion with a number of traditions. The Philippine Independent Church, the Lutheran Church are in dialogue, and we just signed an agreement with the Methodists. So it's very much part of our ethos. I think the challenge for many Christians is when we talk about that we all may be one, who's in the Christian church? So that in Chicago, for example, it's easy to see the Roman Catholic Church as this big behemoth because you all are the biggest church in our city, the largest denomination. How do we think about our evangelical brothers and sisters, or folks who come out of the Baptist tradition?
And what can we learn from?
Interesting array.
What can we learn from one another?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
and I think that spirit of curiosity is hugely important.
Exactly. Dan?
I was just going to add, it's not until we see one another as gifts to our own tradition that we'll come to an agreement or come to believe fully in the unity that Christ wishes. If we see each other as problems to be solved, that's when these challenges emerge. But to recognize the other as a gift to your own spirituality, your own tradition, is when it's where we need to get to in order to make ecumenism real.
You probably understand your relationship with God more fully when you get to that point.
Right.
I believe so very much.
How do we see that richness and diversity? I was reading the Acts reading about Paul and this band of folks on a boat. It's in the Week of Christian Unity webpage, landing on the island, with this, they really shouldn't have gone out. It's this diverse group. And how do we talk to one another? How do we come together in the midst of different beliefs, of different ways of understanding each other, not in a place of judgment or desire to say, well, come to my way of believing and we can be together. But how are we together in the midst of those things that some may say would keep us always apart? Yet, again, that's not God's will for us.
Exactly. Let's remind people about how to connect with the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity. It's January 18th to the 25th. Dan and Reverend Courtney, how do folks connect?
Well, there's very simple ways of just offering prayers during that week. But you can go to the Archdiocesan website where we'll be posting things in the coming days, eia.archchicago.org. The Graymore Ecumenical Institute has a wonderful page devoted to this, as does the World Council of Churches. So if you look them up online, you could find resources for your own use. And those are places that I would immediately say people could go to.
And what about Reverend Courtney? Any
So we'll post links to materials through our website, episcopalchicago.org. And then it's something we will also be featuring. We have a weekly e-news, and we'll be encouraging congregations to lift up prayers for Christian unity during the week, as well as offering resources for congregations to use in any format they might like.
Wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure. Dan Olsen, Director of Ecumenical Interreligious Affairs for the Archdiocese of Chicago, Reverend Courtney Reid, Episcopal Diocese of Chicago, have been our guests in the first half of Catholic Chicago, WNDZ 750 AM. I'd like to thank you both very much, first for your commitment to ecumenism, secondly, for sharing with our audience how they can open their minds and open their hearts to one another in faith. So WNDZ 750 AM Chicago. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Catholic Charities After Supper Visions program offers guests of our Tuesday night supper the opportunity to learn the art of photography. These talented guests, who are often experiencing homelessness, are offered disposable digital cameras, and they work with volunteer professional photographers to learn the basics of taking photos. Then the artists go out and capture images on film of anything they find to be beautiful or interesting in the world. Their photos are amazing. Visit AfterSupperVisions.com to learn more about the artists and their artwork. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn too. At After Supper Visions, we are developing film, talent, and hope. It has been inspiring to see how individuals, families, and communities have found ways to help one another throughout 2020. At Catholic Charities, we usually have 35 to 40 events a year where we gather and enjoy time together in support of important programs and services, while raising critical funds that allow us to respond to the growing number of people who are in need of the most basic necessities in life. Many of our events are now virtual. If you would like to be a sponsor for one of these events, please call 312-948-6864. That's 312-948-6864. Also, visit us at CatholicCharities.net/events and follow us on social media too. We so look forward to when we can resume our events in person and reconnect with our friends and partners throughout Chicagoland. For now, please consider donating to Catholic Charities so our vital work can continue. Thousands of people in Chicago count on Catholic Charities every day. Please help us help them today. Learn more at CatholicCharities.net.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM. Every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., the Archdiocese of Chicago presents programming about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
We're back at WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago. Mark Teresi here, sitting in for Father Greg Sakowicz, our host, who is preparing for his hip surgery on Thursday, so keep Father Greg in your prayers. In the second half of our program here, we have a good friend of our program joining us, Dr. Ed Gordon. He's a professor, lecturer, historian. I'd add a very dedicated parishioner at Holy Name Cathedral. He's been keeping us up to date on health issues during this COVID-19 pandemic. Now that 2021 is here, there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, there is, Mark, and thank you for having me back. Let's start 2021 on a positive note.
Okay.
First, we have now 2 important vaccines that now are being distributed across the United States. Healthcare workers and people in retirement and nursing homes are being vaccinated as we speak. Those numbers will rise, and then the next level will be the older folks, 70 or 70 above 75, and those with other medical conditions. As the months go by, January, February, March, we will see a larger and larger proportion of the population vaccinated across the United States. This will begin to have an impact on the numbers of people who are getting sick and dying. It'll be gradual, but it will begin. So the light now is at the end of the tunnel. We can see it, and that gives us hope for the future.
Now let's back up a little bit. So our other programs, a while ago we were in the second inning. Last program, I think we were in the fifth inning, if this were a baseball game. Where are we now, Ed?
I'd say now we're in the seventh inning.
Wonderful.
Okay?
And expound on that a little bit.
Well, there will be other vaccines that will also be proven to be effective, and the distribution of the vaccines will become better and more efficient as time goes on. And the only way out of this is through vaccination. It's obvious that there are grave limitations to the lack of self-control that many people still have in terms of wearing masks, physical distancing, not going to large group parties, etc. Many people still refuse to see that. However, there is a lighter side to this story. Believe it or not, in all my research, I did finally find a lighter side to this disaster that we're going through.
And that is?
Well, in England, a lot of people have been encouraged by their government to expand their gardens. The British people are big gardeners. Mm-hmm. So they've been expanding their backyard gardens. And this one couple, in their backyard, as they weeded it, they discovered 63 golden coins and one silver coin from the reign of Henry VIII in the 16th century, which is worth a fortune. And across England, 47,000 other artifacts have been dug up in backyard gardens. So guys out there, I have a friend in Santa Ana, California. He lives on Treasure Lane. I told him to get that shovel out there and start digging. Maybe he'll find something.
It wasn't named by accident. Huh?
No, it wasn't.
Now, this is a little aside, but a teacher of mine over the years, historian, Reverend Martin Winters passed away a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
And I remember him always saying to us, if you don't pay attention to history, chances are you're going to repeat it.
That's right, exactly.
So expound on that in terms of the COVID-19.
Well, we know from past epidemics and numbers that many people die in pandemics and epidemics. And we also know that there are effective ways to deal with it. And if we follow these simple rules while we wait to get vaccinated, fewer people will get sick and die. Now, those of you out there that believe that this is a massive conspiracy, that there are other political or economic reasons behind it, I want to tell you this. As a historian, as a social scientist, I look at data from all over the world, and I want to assure you that the data that I see from numerous sources, let's say 20 to 25 different sources is where I get my material from, are of an international nature and national nature, all say the same thing, and that is that the numbers are getting worse. And right now we have recorded in one day 210,000 new cases. We're averaging somewhere over 200,000 new people getting infected every day.
Every day.
And yesterday, almost 1,400 people died from this. Now, let's put this in perspective. During World War II, the United States Armed Forces fought from December 7th, 1941 to early May in 1945. They suffered over 350,000 men and women died in the U.S. Armed Forces.
And that's where we are now.
We're at 300 and almost 52,000 people. I predict that very soon we will pass 400,000, and we may very well hit 500,000 cases.
Well, let's take a little break. That's quite sobering information to sit with for a little bit. Let's take a little break. WNDZ 750 AM on your dial, Catholic Chicago. Dr. Ed Gordon, I did not call you father. I usually call
that's
you
good.
Dr. Ed Gordon.
I don't want to be excommunicated.
We'll be back in just a few minutes to continue this conversation and hopefully learn a little bit more about how we can help alleviate this COVID-19 in our lives by our behaviors. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Catholic Charities staff members work every day to end poverty and homelessness. We do this on a one-to-one basis with anyone who asks for help. We also work with organizations who study these issues across our city, state, and nation. The Wilson Sheehan Lab for Economic Opportunities, or LEO, at the University of Notre Dame is one of these research centers. Through our partnership with LEO, Catholic Charities has gained valuable insights into scientific evaluation methods that determine the most effective interventions to help people avoid poverty and homelessness. Along with our experience and compassion, trusted research is helping Catholic Charities offer hope and so much more to anyone in need. For more information, visit CatholicCharities.net.
We're back, WNDZ 750 AM on your dial, Catholic Chicago. Mark Teresi here, Executive Director over at Holy Name Cathedral, talking with Dr. Ed Gordon. I saw a little blip on someone's Facebook that said 86 more days to St. Patrick's Day.
Well, you can pray to St. Patrick, and remember, there is a plague prayer out there that most of your listeners know.
Which is?
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. That prayer was originally invented during the Great Bubonic Plague in the Middle Ages.
Wow.
Because so many people were dying.
Wow.
Okay. Now, we're not at that level. We're not going to see half the population of the United States die from this COVID-19. However, now, taking precautions, being respect for life. We believe this as Catholics. In terms of abortion, we're against abortion. Assisted suicide to end life, we're certainly against that. Well, folks, this is no longer a health care emergency. This is a health care disaster. Now, let me show you some interest. Let me just review a few things with you.
Good.
Here in Illinois, we've had about 979,000 people test positive, and 18,000 people died in Illinois since this started, okay? Now, in the city of Chicago, the positivity rate is all over the map. The zip code I live in, which is the same zip code as Holy Name Cathedral, recently had a positivity rate of 3.7%.
Wow.
The average for the city at that time was 8.7%.
What's the difference?
The difference is to what extent people are wearing masks, socially distancing, staying out of crowds. Now that number has jumped to 9.2% for the city. One of the things, of course, is 5 million people flew around the country. Another 10 million got in cars and traveled around to their relatives to see other people, friends and neighbors. And just looking out the window of my condo, I could see a hotel nearby. I haven't seen so many windows in that hotel lit up since March. A lot of people were here visiting relatives over the holidays, and that's good. That's not a bad thing. But this is now a healthcare disaster. You have to keep that in mind. Now, are we doing better than others? Yes, actually, we seem to be. Recently in Cook County, another way of measuring how effective people are in following these simple rules is how many people out of 100,000 are getting sick. Recently in Cook County, where we live, for every 100,000 people, the weekly new case rate was 284 people for every 100,000, all right? In California, that same rate per 100,000 was 678.
Triple.
All right?
Wow.
So does individual behavior matter? Well, yes. If we want to keep the death rate down, we have to keep the infection rate down.
And
it only took us 4 days to get from 19 million to 20 million people who are infected. All right? And that number seems to be trending upwards. And just think, last year, and people say, well, look, you had the flu, you have pneumonia. A lot of people die in Illinois. Well, in 2019, 2,100 people died from the flu, influenza, or pneumonia. Corona is 8 times that number, folks.
Exactly.
8 times that number.
Now, when do you see, with the numbers that you're stating here, when do you anticipate the city opening up? Do you think it's going to be a year from now?
I think it'll be very gradual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some states, I was just talking to people in California, and they have started to reopen some museums, even though the hospitals are overwhelmed with cases.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask your listeners, do you really want to take a gun and put a bullet in it and every day sit there and spin the dial and then fire it to your head? If you do, go out, be with crowds, and pressure politicians to open restaurants.
Well, because you can't see the danger.
Well, right. Now, if we had right now 350,000 people who died last year in automobile accidents, the public would be outraged. They'd be blaming public officials, the police, that we weren't being protected on the nation's highways. Well, last year we had 26,000 people die, or the year before, on the highways of America. This is far greater than that.
Yes.
We lack self-control. Too many people lack self-control. Look, the hospitals are full. The beds are full. Many places have nowhere to put patients. They're putting them in parking garages. They're putting them in gift shops. You know, this is my best friend is an infectious disease specialist. He is in Pennsylvania. His hospital has 350 beds. It is totally full. Half of it is COVID. He has people sitting in the waiting room of the emergency room, waiting to get in, who are dying, sitting up in the emergency room. This is no joke. This is no laughing matter. This is no distortion of data.
Well, let's back up a little bit, just in terms of how you're dealing with this. So, what were your holidays like?
Oh, my wife and I had very nice Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's.
How did they vary from pre-COVID times?
We had Zoom meetings with relatives and friends rather than going to other people's homes. All right? That's how it changed. All right?
And that's one thing people
need to do. And people are doing it.
Right.
And look, the majority of people are doing this.
Yes.
And I'm sure the majority of the people listening to us right now are doing this. So they're saying, Ed, don't berate me. No, what I'm trying to do, folks, is give you some ammunition to go out there and talk to your relatives and friends and neighbors and say, oh, well, it's really not that bad. I'll be okay.
And look at where your gifts are. Don't look at what you don't have or what you can't do.
You know, I talk to nurses and doctors all over the country. And one nurse, right now the nurses are exhausted.
Exactly.
They're on 12-hour shifts. And this one nurse said to me that I just wish I could take some people and walk them down through our unit and see the look on the faces of these COVID patients as they die, as they're gasping for life. All right?
You know what?
Think about it. You know,
and
yes.
They're just signaling. We have to take a little break.
Okay.
But we'll come back, and when we come back, I do want to also ask you, you're a teacher. I mean, how has this impacted how you imbue your messages to folks? We'll be back. WNDZ 750 AM on your dial. Catholic Chicago. Mark Teresi here with Dr. Ed Gordon. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
There is so much waiting for you at Catholic Charities Senior Services. We offer programs and services to help make the most of every day. Friendships and fun are guaranteed at our drop-in senior centers. Our Our adult daycare centers offer enjoyment and greater supervision to seniors who need it, while their caregivers get a break. Holy Family Villa provides a beautiful, safe environment for seniors looking for short or long-term residential facility. And we offer assistance with senior benefits, care coordination, congregate and home-delivered meals, hospital transition, and much more. For more than 100 years, we have accompanied seniors through every transition in their lives, and we are here for you now. Catholic Charities is a name and an agency you can trust. Call Senior Services today at 312-655-7700. That's 312-655-7700.
Can't take a bus to the Chicago or National March for Life this year? Not to worry, this year's activities will look a little different, but we will still be marching for the sanctity of life. In partnership with March for Life Chicago, we are bringing the pro-life movement on the road. On Sunday, January 17th, the pro-life movement will come to Mundelein with a drive-in, socially distanced rally at Carmel High School, which will include inspiring speakers, Cardinal Blaise Supich for one. For more information and to register, please visit marchforlifechicago.org/tour. Can't wait to see you there.
Catholic Charities Divine Affair home tasting parties are going virtual. This year marks the 20th anniversary of Divine Affair, the elegant wine tasting event that benefits our self-sufficiency programs. Low-income single parents with dependent children are trying to break the cycle of welfare and poverty. Today, the need is greater than ever as the COVID-19 pandemic has left thousands of newly struggling families in need of immediate assistance. You can easily coordinate a virtual wine tasting and help Catholic Charities at the same time. Each guest will enjoy a sample wine kit that includes wine and a guide, all courtesy of Louis Glenn's Wines. You can gather your friends and family for this fun event or incorporate a celebration for a birthday, anniversary, or engagement at the same time. To learn more about a virtual home tasting party and how you and your guests can win fabulous raffle prizes, call today at 773-756-6937. That's 773-756-6937. Cheers!
We're back. WNDZ 750 AM on your dial, Catholic Chicago. Dr. Ed Gordon. Ed, it's interesting. If you think about a year ago, think about it at Holy Name. We never would have thought we'd be live streaming our masses. Father Greg would have a weekly update online. He would have a reflection, a spiritual reflection online. David Jonas has set a musical concerts, mini concerts online. We've even had to do solicitations, our fundraising online. And one of the things that I've spotted, and at Christmas time, like they let me do music with our kids in the religious ed program, we had a virtual Christmas party. So all of these things we never imagined a year ago. You know, as we move forward, and you're a teacher, how has this impacted your creativity, and what do you see in terms of the future, in terms of how are people going to be learning and or worshiping?
Well, first of all, let's hope public health improves, because the possibility of more of these viruses escaping from the animal population and infecting humans is quite possible.
Right. Creativity.
So this could happen
and
again.
What do you see
next
in
time
terms
this
of
happens? We may take it more seriously. Look, people are tired of wearing masks. They're tired of social distancing. They're tired of not going to a movie theater, a restaurant, a Bears football game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And right now, people feel overwhelmed by forces that are completely beyond their control and their understanding. And it's inevitable that they will search for some explanation, a scapegoat, and say, you know, this is a conspiracy, it doesn't exist, the numbers are exaggerated, etc. You know, in talking, what I've been doing in my research and in my outreach, and this, your generous offers to have me come on about once a month and talk about this to your audience is part of my effort.
It's very important.
To inform the public and to share stories from funeral homes, doctors, nurses across the United States.
Because don't forget, Ed, you're a research person, you're a historian, but you're also, and you can take it for how I'm delivering this, you're also a man of faith. So it's rooted a lot of different ways into how you see this.
Correct. And people shouldn't panic, but they have to show respect for other people's lives. This is inconvenient, it's boring, but until someone knocks on your door or calls you on the phone and tells you that you have a mother or father who are dying, or another relative or personal friend.
Which everybody has.
I've had several now. I've had the co-author of one of my books just died last week from this. All right?
So have we.
All right. So
let me tell you one little story,
sure.
too. And I think it kind of captures the frustration you're talking about with all of us. So Christmas time, we're safe, distanced, masked, but we did go see our granddaughters. And our little grandson, who's their cousin, is a couple months old. Well, the minute he was going to come in, they safe distanced him over, and the little ones had to put masks on. And little Nora, who's 3 years old, just stood in the middle of the room and said, when is the bug going to be gone? I just need some hugs and kisses.
That's right. Well, we all do.
Yeah, and I think that's the core piece of the self-sacrifice with wearing the mask and being distanced.
Look at the damage that e-learning has done, trying to replace classroom learning.
Yeah.
My niece is a librarian in a school out in Denver, and they've been open and closed as the waves have gone through. And she said it was amazing when she went back after a while and how the children were so happy to be in school. They were so elated to be in school.
Yeah.
When so many of them hated to be in school, suddenly they realized that being with other people was a very important part of their life and enhances learning.
And there's another dimension to this I hope our listeners understand, especially people who are connected in faith to their parishes, and that is our priests are tired. They've tried so hard to make sure they're bringing Christ to everybody.
Yes.
And on a weekly basis, part of their energy is seeing the folks. Who are, and not only seeing them in a limited way, yes, they see them at Cathedral, 200 instead of, 1,000, but being able to interact with people. I remember an old pastor of mine said the most important time he spends during the week is after Mass, greeting people. They tell him stories. They connect him with different life issues that are going on. And our priests are missing that right now. So I hope people keep them in prayer, too. During this time, they're working real hard. Well, you see it, Ed.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And just in closing, I want to have people put this thought in their mind. I wouldn't wish this on my own worst enemy, seeing someone catch this and what they go through, either to die from it or many of them are seriously ill after for a long time. Mm-hmm. You have to do whatever you can, not only to protect yourself, but to protect all of those around you. If you're a good Christian, a good Catholic, this is part of your faith and part of what you need to do spiritually to fortify yourself this is a war. People are dying in large numbers. Let's keep the numbers down. And let's act responsible as Christians and Catholics and as members of our community and citizens of the United States.
Ed, we have just in closing, what's your hope for us?
My hope is that people will act more responsibly and we can see the numbers go down quicker. And more people will get vaccinated and not say, oh, no, I don't need the vaccine. Maybe next time I'm on, we'll talk about vaccines.
Great. Thanks. Dr. Ed Gordon, professor, lecturer, historian, very dedicated parishioner over at Holy Name Cathedral. Thank you for your time. I learned something, Ed, every time you're on, and I really appreciate your commitment to moving us forward in faith.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. WNDZ 750 AM on your dial. Catholic Chicago, Mark Teresi sitting in for Father Greg Sakowicz. Keep him in your prayers, especially Thursday when he has that hip surgery. We'll keep you updated on his progress. Thank you and have a blessed day.